Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at Etrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the Solera slide-out awnings on a 2020 Grand Design Solitude fifth wheel. There are three sizes you will need to cover all of your slide-outs. All three are available in black or white to match your fifth wheel. You'll need the 181-inch, 163-inch, and 85-inch slide-out awnings. The joys of being outdoors while camping means that you get to be out in nature. The problem is when you're ready to hit the road, you don't want to bring nature inside your RV, and that's where slide-out awnings come in play. So slide-outs are great because you get a whole lot of space that you wouldn't normally have, but with that, it creates a whole shelf that allows sticks, leaves, water, mold, pollen, bugs, anything to really accumulate on, and that's where these slide-out awnings come in play. They create a barrier that's going to protect everything from being able to get onto your slide, and that way when you're drawing it back in, it's not going into your RV. Now it also has a few other nice features that kind of come into play, and a lot of times during bright sweltering sun, this creates a nice little way to kind of stop those rays from beating down on the slide, so it's going to cut down a little bit on that heat. Now you can see this gap that we have between our awning and our slide out, and this can accumulate pretty much anything that you're parked under or exposed to. And while you do have this rubber flap to kind of stop those things from getting in, it's not perfect. And if you have branches or twigs or anything along those lines and you draw those in against this, it does run the risk of damaging that seal, and that's going to allow everything to get inside, creating kind of a potentially moldy mildew mess inside of your RV. The main thing that this is going to do is keep the air quality inside the RV as nice as possible without drawing that in. Also, it's just going to protect the lifespan of your slide and all the components. That way it's not smashing anything in as you draw them in. They're super easy to install, and we have 3 of them installed on our Solitude today, so they're going to be protected across the board. The first thing you're going to want to do to determine if you get the right slide topper first is going to be measuring your slide out from flange to flange. So ours is coming in at right about 81.5 inches. Now once you get your flange measurement, you're going to want to choose the slide out that's going to be closest to the measurement you got from flange to flange. Now you can go a little bit wider or a little bit more narrow. I would kind of err on the go a little bit wider. It's going to give you a little bit more coverage and just kind of protect that slide out just a little bit more. Now keep in mind you're going to want to have at least 7 inches of clearance on each side, and so make sure that there's no other slide outs, any awnings, or anything that's mounted on the side of your RV that could get in the way, and do that on both sides. So we're going to go ahead and get this one installed. We've already installed 2 different size awnings on this camper, but they all install exactly the same. So if you can follow the steps on one, it's going to be identical. You just may need an extra ladder or 2 for some of those longer ones to feed that up there. Now the first thing that you're going to want to check that might save you a little bit of time is sometimes RVs will come prepped already with an extrusion rail in place. It should run along the top side of the slide, and that's where we're going to put the bead of the slide out awning in place. Now ours does not have it already pre-installed, so I'll show you how to get yours installed if you need to. The first thing that we're going to do is with a set of pliers, open up the end of the extrusion rail that you're going to be feeding your slide topper in. It really doesn't matter. Whichever side has a little bit more clearance or just less obstacles to go around is going to be probably the ticket. And we just bend these out. This is just going to make it a little bit easier to feed that channeling in and really kind of cut down on the potential of this catching on that slide as you're going in and ripping the canvas. So now we'll just flip this over. And you're going to want to pick up some butyl tape. We have this available here at Etrailer, and this is just going to run along the entire thing. So when we put those screws in, it's going to draw that in, making sure that water's not able to drip through there. It's going to create a nice seal, and it also kind of holds it in place once we press it in, allowing us to get our hardware in. And I'll just put this on the flat surface and run a strip down the entire length of it. It's pretty malleable and easy to work with, so if you put a little bit extra, not to worry. But the main thing is we're covering up all those holes where we're going to be drilling into it. Now when putting your extrusion rail up, you're going to want the channeling towards the top, and that's going to allow that covering of the awning to protect all this hardware and just kind of prolong the life of it. So now we're going to center this up so you can measure each side of where it extends over. And then I'm going to try to go as high as I can. Ideally, you're trying to get 4.5 inches to 7.5 inches above the slide T-mold. This is going to be a good shot for us. The main thing is you're going level, not with the roof line, but with the top of the slide out. So you might want to double check measurements, make sure that your gap is completely even across the board. And the butyl should kind of just hold this in place for you as you get your self-tapping screws in. Now you can see that example on the backside as the roof line tapers off. Obviously, if we followed that, it's going to be crooked. So you're going to go and use the top of your slide as the reference point. So we'll be using these self-tapping screws. They have a square bit, and we're just going to run these in. I suggest having your impact ready. So I'm going to start here in the middle to kind of hold this in place for me. And then I'm going to do my two ends and then work my way in, getting the rest of the hardware in place. So now we'll take our extension rods and we'll head to the end caps of each side of our slide out, and we're going to align the hole that's already pre-drilled to the hole that's on the end cap. And we're going to take our large Phillips head screws, and these kind of self-tap in. So you're really going to probably want an impact on these just to kind of drive these in. So just kind of square that up. And then we'll snug this down. Now we need to get our access brackets in place, and this is going to go right up to the top portion of our T-molding, and you'll see that there is a flange at the top. We're going to be putting that towards the top. Also make sure you're butylling this, and we're going to use the panhead screws. They're countersunk. Now because of the way that this cover is, it kind of curves. You may have a gap on the side here. That's okay. You're just wanting this as far up as possible, nice and squared up with it, and as far over as you can, but you don't want it to be crooked. So if this bulges in, not to worry. So we'll go ahead, we'll get these self-tapped in. So I've gone ahead, and with an extra set of hands, we got an extra ladder, and Chris is helping us feed this. We're going to take this extrusion bead, and this is going to go into the rail. So that's where getting that bend on the end really helps. Now I've unraveled it just a few rolls just to make sure we can get this in place. And once you get that started, we'll just kind of slide this down, making sure that this all goes in nice and even. So really keep an eye here as you're feeding it in that it doesn't catch on that fabric. So now we'll just slide this in to where it's nice and even. And I'm going to just place this up here on our roof for now. Now at this point, we need to have our bracket ready to slide on our extension rail as well as our bracket that we have mounted up. And I'm just going to kind of hold this in place here. As long as you get it to not unravel, it should kind of hold in place. Now I'll take our bracket, I'm going to slightly put it on our extension rod here, and that way we can have this in place as we slide this into our bracket. And make sure that you are getting both of those locked in the channel. Sometimes you can just hook the first one and think that it's good, but it does need to have both of them locked in. Now make sure that your bracket again is flush with the one behind it, and we're going to take the grub screws included with the kit, and these are going to go in the top ones. We'll get this started with just by hand, and then an 1/8 inch Allen is going to tighten this down. Now there's thread lock on here, so go ahead, tighten this. It may fight you a little bit, but this is going to hold it in long term. So we'll get these top two in place, and then we're going to repeat on the other side, getting those top two in. And once you get those tightened down, there's this cap here that's going to cover up those grub screws, and this just slides in the channel. Now these might fight you a little bit to get these in place, but just know that once you get them in, they're also going to stay in place really well. So and again, it's not sliding on super easy. You might want to grab just a small rubber mallet and kind of get this to go along. That way you're not having to use your palm of hand, just like I'm doing. Now we're putting these grub screws in the top, and that's because we set our brackets in the lower setting, and really that's to make sure that we have clearance. Our extrusion rail wasn't able to go super high, so we're really trying to get a little bit of pitch. That way water doesn't pool on our slide topper. But if you extend out your slide topper later on and realize that it's hitting the top of your slide, you can move this bracket up, and if that's the case, once you slide that up, you would use these bottom holes for those grub screws. Next, we need to make sure that this is properly evened up on both sides because we're going to get this drilled in. So this is your final step to make sure that you have it even on both sides. And what I would do is measure from the edge of the canvas to the outside flange of your slide. That way you're having even coverage on both sides. Now, once you're happy with it being centered up, we'll just kind of peel this back, and where our bracket goes into that extension rail, we'll be using self-tapping screws to get these installed. Now this is going to be a 5/16 impact bit if you have one. And just make sure that it's tight. You don't want to keep going because you can round off that hole or create a thread that this isn't going to bite into. So there's going to be 2 of them on each bracket. We'll go ahead and get those done on both sides. On each end, we have a pin that holds this, and that kind of keeps that spring tension from just spinning. Now, these are something you want to hold on to if you ever have to do any maintenance or take these down. It's nice to be able to put that in place. And the way to get these out, you're just going to hold back on the roller to take that tension off. And then with your pliers, there's a small tab up top that you'll grab and peel that up. And if you're having trouble getting this pin out, just roll this back a little extra and that should help. Now let go and be careful where your fingers are. It's going to pull that tension. And then we just need to slide our slide out. And that's going to really kind of get it to a good point where it's going to be squared up. And then we'll come back up here and get our extrusion rail tapped in. With it fully extended, now's a great chance to make sure that our fabric isn't making contact with our T-molding and that everything's nice and taut. We don't have any wrinkles or maybe looking off kilter. Should be nice and square. Now, the best way to check for wrinkles is honestly putting your slide out and then also drawing it back in. And that's where a lot of times you're going to start to see some of those wrinkles forming. And so when you see a wrinkle, that was a good time to stop. And a lot of times you can even that out by pulling tension on the extrusion bead. Now, the best way to really fine tune this is look for the ways that the crinkles go. So this, you can see it's kind of edging towards me or towards the roof edge. So if you need to even that out, what you'll do is just slowly roll this back a little, take that tension out. And as you kind of play around by just pushing it, you'll see those wrinkles start to change a little bit. So now it's a little bit more straight. But we do want to make sure that we have both sides evened out, because just because we have one side over here ironed out, you can actually see on the other side we're having that same issue. So that's a good chance to go on the other side, unravel it, pull that tension, and just really play with it to make sure that long term it's going to be nice and even, because as you store this, it's going to have those wrinkles, and that can make a wear mark on your slide out long term. So once you're happy with it, we need to take self-tapping screws, and we're going to run through that extrusion rail and trying to get that bead. Now we're going to be going on the bottom side, so I'm going to be using an extension and our self-tapper. This is just a 1/4 inch. So go ahead, we can get this drilled into place. Now you've officially installed your slide topper. All that's left to do is repeat the exact same steps on any of the other ones that you may be installing on other slides. And that was a look and installation of the Solera slide out awnings on a 2020 Grand Design Solitude fifth wheel.